What's up guys, Sean Nalawani, SeanNal.com, RealScienceAthletics.com. The title of today's video is the single fastest way to gain muscle. And I'll say up front that if you're looking for some sort of fancy, groundbreaking, never before seen answer to the question, then you might be a bit disappointed here, but I really wanted to get this video out there because there's just way too much fluff circulating around when it comes to YouTube fitness content and Instagram fitness content, and a lot of people just end up losing sight of what is most important in the whole equation. Now, most people who have done their research and have some training experience under their belt already understand that progressive overload is the primary driver of building muscle over the long term, meaning you need to be progressively exposing your muscles to a more challenging workload over time if you want them to continue responding and growing further. And this can be done in a variety of ways. The most common method is to increase the amount of weight you're lifting on each exercise, but you can also perform more reps with the same weight. You can perform more sets per muscle group for the week. You can train a muscle more often. You can adjust your form to make an exercise more mechanically challenging. You can reduce your rest time in between sets, slow down your rep cadence. There's also the option of applying certain high intensity techniques during your sets. Those are technically all forms of progressive overload that can lead to improved muscle growth in one way or another. However, it's important to understand that not all forms of progressive overload are equal. And I've been seeing a lot of content where people will list off all these different methods and say, lifting more weight is not the only answer. Look at all these other things you can do to make progress in the gym. And that's not incorrect. You can do those things as a way of improving your progress to varying degrees. However, unless you're a more advanced lifter with at least a couple years of consistent training under your belt, who has already built up a solid foundation of muscle, the simple fact is that getting stronger and adding more weight to the bar on all of your exercises, particularly the basic compound lifts, that should be your primary focus by far. That is the fastest way to gain muscle no matter how you break it down. You're not gonna build a big chest by pressing 35-pound dumbbells. You're not gonna build big legs by squatting 150 pounds. And you're not gonna build a big back if you can't even do pull-ups using your body weight. And on the other hand, you're not going to have a muscular chest, legs, or back if you're pressing, say, 100-pound dumbbells for reps, or you're squatting 3 plates per side or more, or you're doing, let's say, strict pull-ups with 60 pounds or more strapped around your waist. You can dabble around all you want with these elaborate bodybuilding pump programs you see with fancy exercise variations and drop sets and supersets and Swiss balls and bands and all this stuff, and where all the training variables are constantly being mixed around. That makes for good online content because it seems new and it seems unique, and you definitely can gain some muscle in the initial stages that way. But if you're looking to maximize your progress, to put on significant mass onto your frame, to build a legitimately impressive physique and to do it as efficiently as possible, you need to stop diluting your focus with all this unnecessary complicated stuff and make basic strength gain your primary goal. Not only because progressive tension overload is the most effective way to stimulate hypertrophy in general, but also because most other methods of progressive overload can only be applied up to a pretty limited point anyway. For example, when it comes to training volume, how many sets can you realistically add to your program before it's not practical anymore? The fact is that you can only do so many sets per workout or per week before the overall workload gets too high, not to mention that training volume also means a bigger time investment. So if you gradually work up to, let's say, doubling your training volume, that also means you're gonna be spending twice as much time in the gym. Whereas lifting more weight at the same volume doesn't change the time investment, and so you're able to be a lot more efficient with your training. The same thing goes for training frequency. If you're already hitting a muscle twice per week, then what's next? 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week? You can't just keep increasing the frequency indefinitely, whereas when it comes to strength gains, particularly on the basic compound lifts, you really can continue to just increase in a linear fashion, and you can do that for years and continue making gains from it, and again, without changing the overall time investment. And the same thing applies to the other methods that I mentioned as well. You can't just keep reducing rest time between sets or making exercises more mechanically challenging or slowing down your reps. These things are all pretty limited in how they can be applied, whereas strength gain is something that can be worked on and improved on over the long term. Now, once you do hit that more advanced lifting stage and you've gained a considerable amount of overall muscle size and strength, and maybe the amount of weight that you're lifting on certain lifts isn't something that your joints can keep up with without discomfort, then you can start manipulating these other variables to squeeze out some additional progress. But for anyone who isn't in the advanced stages yet and is otherwise healthy in terms of their joints, The single fastest way to gain muscle is to gain strength. Make no mistake about it. It's to gradually add more weight to the bar on the key compound lifts over time. That's where your primary focus needs to be, and that's what you need to be using as the central gauge for determining whether your program is moving in the right direction. If you're consistently gaining strength and your nutrition is in order, then you'll know for the most part that you're on the right track. Your body is continuing to make those positive adaptations, whereas if your strength isn't increasing, then you'll know that something is off and needs adjusting. And this is why your training logbook is so crucially important, because it's going to allow you to track your strength progress in detail. It's going to give you a concrete record of where you are now and what you need to do to improve. So every time you enter the gym, you want to be thinking about beating the logbook by getting just a little bit better each time. And a little bit better is a key phrase there. You know, people will hear this idea that gaining strength is the fastest way to gain muscle, and so they think that that means they need to be piling on the weight and making rapid increases every week. Keep in mind that none of this stuff happens rapidly, and it's often going to be measured in terms of individual reps and then small increases of 5 to 10 pounds at a time, or even 2.5 pounds on smaller isolation lifts. So maybe one week you lift 100 pounds for 5 reps, next week it's 100 pounds for 6, 100 pounds for 7, and then you increase to 105 and aim for 5 reps again, and just continue in this fashion, making sure that your lifting technique remains exactly the same with each weight increase. The changes from week to week are going to be very minor, but if you just write it down and you focus on improving in some way, even if it's just 1 rep, and then you extrapolate that over 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, over time, it's going to add up to huge increases in both muscle size and strength. And following a basic model like this and just focusing on getting stronger can easily allow you to achieve I would say around 80% or more of your total genetic muscle building potential, probably over the course of about 2 to 3 years. And then again, at that point, you can start using some of the other methods that I mentioned to help take things further if you want. And all of this, of course, assumes the other aspects of your program, so your lifting technique, nutrition, supplementation, sleep, etc., that all those things are on point as well. But the bottom line here is don't get too distracted by all the noise out there. There obviously are a lot of smaller details involved in structuring an optimal program in all areas, but for beginner and intermediate lifters especially, muscle growth will come as an automatic byproduct of building up a solid strength foundation, and that's where the majority of your focus should be placed if you want to transform your body as quickly as possible. So I hope this advice was helpful. If you do want to learn all those other details behind mapping out a complete training program from A to Z in order to fully maximize your size and strength gains, including step-by-step routines for beginners, intermediates, and more advanced lifters, then you can check out my body transformation blueprint by clicking here or by visiting btblueprint.com. For those who are new to the channel, my brand new science-based pre-workout fish oil and multivitamin are also now available over at RealScienceAthletics.com. The link is in the description box. And make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe below if you haven't already in order to stay up to date on future videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.